Hello, welcome to our first edition of Biology Bios, or Bio Bios, from the University of Memphis's Department of Biological Sciences. My name is Jim Edelman. I'm an assistant professor in the department. And the purpose of this podcast is to highlight the fact that almost every Thursday during the semesters, we have a guest researcher come and tell us about their research in some area of biology. And that's Thursdays, 4 p.m., Ellington Hall on campus. Everybody is welcome. I wanted to add to that as well some questions for these folks to tell us not only why they're super excited about the projects they're working on, but how they got where they are and what advice they have for younger biologists kind of coming up in today's world. And with that, I should give a shout out to Rhett Miller, whose excellent podcast, Wheels Off, is really the inspiration for this. He asks people who are authors, singers, songwriters, musicians, these questions, and I totally lifted them from him. So Rhett Miller, lead singer of the Old 97s, I look forward to your cease and desist letter. And with that disclaimer, I'd like to let us get started here with our first ever interview, which is with Dr. Sheila Poo from the Memphis Zoo, talking about what she does and why she's super jazzed about it. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see you at her talk on February 1st. Here we go. Okay, well, so then if this is going to be Memphis Biology Bios, or Bio Bios, my guest today is Dr. Sheila Poo from the Memphis Zoo. So I figured the first thing I'd do is kind of let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're interested in and where you work and what you do.
Sure. I am the curator of research at the Memphis Zoo, and I also have an adjunct position over at Arkansas State University. I am a behavior ecologist by training and conservation biologist by practice, I would say. I've been with the Memphis Zoo for 8 years, starting from my postdoc there and then morphing into the position that I have currently. My job involves, a lot of different aspects of conservation or of conservation science. So it's hard to kind of distill it down to a soundbite, I guess. But I would say, I do research projects that are related to, basic science. I have conservation projects looking at ex situ conservation at the zoo and also in situ conservation through our reintroduction programs. So we have some reintroduction sites that we're building for our different species. I work a lot on building bridges between institutions. That seems very amorphic. But, things like this, connecting with universities, collaborating with universities in the region or collaborating with other institutions that, have some overlapping interests to the zoo. So, for instance, the natural history museums, we all work on different types of animal collections. So there's some overlap there. I collaborate a lot with different types of conservation nonprofits, both domestically and outside of the U.S. I have projects that are about science communication, education, and raising visibility for groups that are, let's say, traditionally either underrepresented or overlooked in STEM, and specifically in herpetology, which is a lot of in the realm of the research that I do. I do, I guess, podcasts like this every now and then. So, we're different hats.
Excellent. Thank you. So speaking with all those different hats, I guess my first question that I want to ask you is what's one project that you're working on right now that you're particularly excited about, and why are you why does it make you jazzed to be doing that work?
One project. It's hard to choose a favorite project. Maybe I'll say a couple, but I would say one recent project at the zoo that I'm really excited about is that the zoo started a new partnership with a conservation nonprofit in Sri Lanka. So this is a project that I spearhead, and it's a collaboration between the Memphis Zoo and this organization called the Tropical Ecosystem Research Network, which is an organization in Sri Lanka. And this has really become one of the zoo's main, conservation flagship projects relatively quickly within the last year, starting from, this collaborator, and good friend of mine, from Sri Lanka. So her name is Inoka. And, so Inoka, has worked in Sri Lanka for many years. She's a professor in the university there. And she started this nonprofit organization, with two, main goals. One is to protect the land and one is to protect the animals. So we started this collaboration with, a workshop that really is more related to knowledge transfer. So at the Memphis Zoo, we deal with a lot of animals. We know we have a very good animal hospital and we know how to deal with animal injuries. And that's an area that's really needed, in the work that Inoka does, because they see a lot of human animal conflict and they see a lot of injuries. And they, don't really have the resources or the capacity to really treat them. So we started with a workshop, on that. And through that, we build this, MOU between the organizations. And that led to what is really exciting for me right now is that the Memphis Zoo is funding, a conservation and research center, in Sri Lanka, as a part of this partnership. So it's called the CARE Center, which stands for Conservation, Awareness, Research, and Education. There we go.
Very cool.
So it's currently being built. We just saw the groundbreaking, and hopefully within a year, we will have a center in this conservation land that Kern is running in Sri Lanka that can really help build the local capacity. So I think that is very close and dear for me. I did my PhD research in Southeast Asia, and I'm from Asia. So it's a project that I'm really excited about. But I would say I would also want to talk about the projects going on here in Memphis. So another project that I lead here is the Dusty Gopher Frog project, and that is has been the flagship at the Memphis Zoo since long before I joined. So it's been a project here for about 20 years, and that includes partnerships with universities, with government organizations, with state agencies, and it's a project where you can really see the difference being made. It started with having a captive population, it led to reintroduction, and now we're actually seeing a new wild population emerging through our reintroduction efforts, which is rare, and very exciting in that aspect.
So just a kind of follow up on that project, which is super cool. So do you have a bunch of reintroduction sites, or is this like focused at one area, or do you do you put all your eggs in one basket, or do you spread them around? Like how does that work?
Yeah. I guess the biologist in me would want to say that you want to spread things out, because ultimately you want to create a meta population that's stable in the area, right? We're not at that point yet. So we started reintroductions, the first year that I moved, to Memphis, actually in 2017. So we reintroduced from 2017 to now, so 6-7 years now. And it's mainly at two ponds in the Ward Bayou Wildlife Management Area down in Mississippi. It's about an hour north of the coast. So it's in the longleaf pine forest. It's in their historical range, but at a site that they were no longer found. So we have these two ponds that are relatively close, so that frogs can go back and forth. But right now it's kind of those two ponds. We currently are working on trying to get new reintroduction sites, but that is a long process in terms of finding the right partners and getting approval, especially with a critically endangered species. So working on more sites, but right now mainly one.
No, that's very exciting. I mean, just to be able to get them back on the landscape at all, right? That's huge.
Yeah, it is. And oftentimes with reintroductions, it's very hard to follow up because, we're a zoo. We don't, necessarily have the resources to do a lot of in situ, monitoring. So I got a grant a couple years ago to do a round of monitoring, which is, very helpful. It was a grant through the AZA, Association for Zoos and Aquariums. But I think what we are able to do is we've released for 7 years. In the last 3 years, we've been able to see eggs, being laid at the site. So we know that there's recruitment, and we know that they're not there before. So that, even if I can't follow every single frog, I don't really have a population estimate. We are seeing that, it is starting to take hold. So that's been fun.
And that's super critical. I mean, I think like a lot of, foresters that I've known have talked about recruitment, being just, you can see what looks like a healthy forest, right? Mm-mm. But if there's no seedlings, there's no saplings, you've got a problem. So you've got recruitment going on. So you've got this really promising sign.
Yeah. It's a good, kind of landmark of progress. Yeah, for sure. Mm.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So switching gears like a little bit to kind of more personal. So like your journey in science. Did you have a time that you knew you wanted to be a scientist, or how did you get down this path?
The joking side of me wants to say when somebody gave me a job.
Yeah, that's a good reason.
But like, and it's only half joking, right? I think I started this path because I was offered opportunities. So I had a few undergrad labs that I was volunteering in, as a lot of us do. And one lab that had a REU, so it was going to be a paid summer position. And I think that was really important for me, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to have my own research project. So I think that probably is the first turning point. It was my first, project that I did with amphibians and, that I built on.
I think you hit on something that I think is really important, that, we encourage people to get involved in research. We say volunteer in labs, talk to professors. It can be huge to have those financial opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. That means like you can actually do this as your day job, and you don't have to be volunteering in science and going and getting your money elsewhere, right? Like you can have a summer where you totally focus. So I think that's something that's super important. And I know, like the granting agencies and NSF, like that's a reason why we have these research experiences for undergraduates, right? So we can let people have these experiences and discover what they can do and, really be able to focus. So that's awesome that was a sort of turning point for you. Okay. So I have a couple other like sort of personal science journeys. So this one's a little bit weird. Well, maybe it's not that weird, but, I'm struggling with exactly how to ask it. But so like we have to write a lot. We have to present a lot. Like a lot of what we do comes under scrutiny from others, but like also ourselves. So like, I don't know about you, but I certainly have an inner critic that's very judgy of my own writing and that sort of thing. And I'm wondering if you have like any advice on like how you acknowledge or silence or deal with that inner critic that, like you have this idea and this inner critic's like, that's not that good of an idea.
That's true. And I don't know, if I were to give advice on how to do it, because, I think everybody is different based off of, the experiences that they have and some of the, advantages or disadvantages that they have. So it's a little bit hard to generalize. What has been helpful, I'll say something general and then I'll say something specific. So I think in general, interacting with other people, has been helpful in, not necessarily silencing the inner critic, but qualifying it a little bit. So that, the more you kind of talk to other people and find a group of people that are maybe, in the same kind of career stage as you to talk to. Because I think looking up, it can seem intimidating. You're looking at other people's success and you're looking at people that have been, doing this for a lot longer, right? So it's easy to compare that and try to feel inadequate. So, looking at your peers, and having feedback like that, I think is very helpful. And then my very specific example is I had a postdoc, this was when I was in grad school, who said that all the comments that you give, when you give others should be in a sandwich, meaning that if you're going to give a bad comment, it should be sandwiched into comments that are positive. Mm-hmm. And this was specific about writing, right? When you're giving feedback on a manuscript, let's say, especially if you're, giving feedback to younger students, to always kind of point out what has been done well and point out, when you're trying to point out things that can be improved. So I think that is the self-critic, but I think it's, we are, constantly reviewing other people's stuff and helping make it better. That's something that I keep in mind when I'm trying to, give feedback to others.
Honestly, I kind of love the idea of taking that and like turning it towards your inner critic. You could, kind of be like, okay, inner critic, I'm going to compliment sandwich you. So like, this is a pretty good idea. I see what you're saying about how there's this problem with it. And also I think that I can, move forward with it. Cause it's like the inner critic is like, it'll say things that you would not say to a student or to somebody whose manuscript you're reviewing, So it's like, yeah, why don't you just like be more like I would when I'm talking to somebody else? I like that a lot. Okay, so let me broaden this out generally. So we kind of talked about getting a start in science, and what, like, broad brushstrokes, anything goes. What advice would you have to like a younger version of yourself, like a 22-year-old version of yourself, undergrad age, working in biology, ecology, conservation today?
Find your people.
Yeah.
I think it takes a while, to find a good group of people. People that have shared experience can be hard to find. So I think, find the people that are, that make you want to do projects, that in very specific ways that make you happy to jump on a Zoom call whenever, right? So find the people that are worth working with, and, stick with them.
Oh, that's fantastic advice. I think that we think so much about like science in terms of like being objective, and it's all about the work and it's about the truth, but we do it with other people, right? Like that's such an important part of it. And to really listen to that voice that's like, oh yeah, these are people that I like working with. This makes me psyched about coming to work, or like you said, jumping on a Zoom call. Yeah, no, that's really cool.
The pandemic really, made that, apparent, is that there are people who, projects and people who work on projects where at any given time, if they say, can you jump on a call to talk about this? I'd be like, great, let's do it, And there are ones that are, you schedule this meeting and you have to be in this meeting. So there is a very stark contrast.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it was the pandemic too, but I feel like some of my friends in science like kind of started realizing like, yeah, I think I'm going to put more of my energy to those projects where I'm super psyched about the people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take a ton of your time. I want this to be kind of like a quick intro to you that people can hear before your talk. So those are really like my big questions that I wanted to get after. Is there anything else that we should chat about? Is there anything that like, is there a question you wish I asked you?
No, I think, that I'm happy to talk. I look forward to seeing people at the seminar, and I'm, around the corner. I'm at the zoo. So if anybody's interested, you can feel free to reach out.
Sounds awesome. I am super excited for your talk and to see you in person in just a couple weeks. And thanks again for being the maiden voyage here of this endeavor. So I really appreciate it. This has been a ton of fun.
Yes, my pleasure.
All right. Well, take care, and we'll see you very soon.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Again, that was Dr. Sheila Poo from the Memphis Zoo. She is going to be speaking about her research on February 1st, 2024. That's a Thursday at 4 p.m. at Ellington Hall. We hope to see you there. Take care.